today's webinar is called Don't Be an Ostrich, How to Deal with a Product Feedback Crisis. If that doesn't make a whole load of sense right now, I promise it will soon. So I'm Joe Daniels, Head of Content at Receptive, and I'm joined by our founder and it's not.
Let's have a look. Oh, great.
We've got technical difficulties.
One second, sorry. Can you get out of the keynote? Oh no, let's have a look. Oh, there we go. There we go. It's decided to work. Thank you, computer. Hey.
That's us.
I look as though I'm just about to ask Carrie something, which is interesting. But there we go.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know what I'm looking at.
Something across the road, clearly.
Yeah, something more interesting. So I'm Joe, Head of Content at Receptive, and I'm joined by Hannah.
Hi.
So there's an old myth that ostriches bury their heads in the sand in an attempt to hide from predators. This isn't actually true, but it did become the origin of the phrase bury one's head in the sand, as in ignore the problem and hope it goes away on its own. When it comes to feedback, a lot of organizations seem to bury their heads in the sand. Often this is simply because they didn't put provisions in place from the start. So they end up with feedback all over the place with no way of actually analyzing it. And let's face it, it's easier to ignore it and hope it all goes away.
I did not know that about ostriches.
Neither did I until
there you go. There you go.
As you probably know, missing out on the insights feedback provides is a surefire way of having a stagnating product that doesn't do what your customers want it to. That can lead to churn. That can lead to the eventual collapse of your company. That's quite dramatic.
That's very dramatic, Joe.
It's scary stuff, and it's no wonder you want to take the ostrich's lead and bury your head in the sand. Unfortunately, doing that is only going to make things worse. Inaction is the worst way to deal with your feedback problem. It's still going to grow bigger and bigger, you just won't be able to see it. This webinar is designed to provide a way out of the hole. We're here to show you that rather than panic and ignore it, you can tweak your process and start managing feedback effectively.
So here's a load of things we've learned that work really well. So first off, if you need to fix that problem, you obviously need to know what's causing it. So we highly recommend, if you're on the product team doing this yourself or maybe a CEO role, but give someone the job of conducting an audit of how you currently manage feedback. So there's three main parts. So yeah, the problem will lie with one of them, or at least one of them. And the three parts are the collection of feedback, the analysis of that data, so how you as a business actually take that feedback and use it in product decisions, and then the communication piece. So for each part, we've come across several really common problems that we see time and time again. So we'll go through that section at a time and kind of go over the top things that we've seen.
Okay, so first up, the collection stage. This is arguably the most important one, because if you're not collecting feedback effectively, then the rest of the process doesn't really matter. The first problem SaaS companies commonly encounter is that they aren't getting enough feedback. So in a way, this is the easiest problem to solve, as it doesn't necessarily require any major tweaks to your process. You need to make it as easy as possible for customers and team members to provide feedback. If they have to go on a wild goose chase to get to a form, then they're probably not going to bother. If they can't self-serve and provide feedback whenever they want, then why would they even try?
I like the animal analogies, Joe.
Yeah, I must have like, my head must have been in like a safari at the time. So you need to decide how you're collecting feedback. Is it going to be a type form survey? Is it a dedicated email address? Or is it something bigger, a software solution like Receptive? Receptive, yeah. That's us.
Oh, I just give a cough
cheeky
with
plug.
that one.
Then once that's set up, you can tell people about it. Reach out to your customers and make them aware that you want their feedback, and this is how you do it. The easier you make it for them, the more likely they are to do it.
So that's not enough feedback. Some people get too much feedback, which kind of leads nicely onto the second point as well. I think customers are always demanding their voices heard, and this is kind of feedback will be coming into your organization in loads of different ways. But obviously, if you can't actually consolidate it, you can't analyze and use it. So yeah, I guess it's good news if you're not short on feedback, but the bad news is it can take a bit of sorting out. So first off, do settle how you're going to collect feedback. Just pick one of the current options. The one that's most frequently used makes a lot of sense, but then again, prevent users from putting feedback in other channels as well. It just avoids a load of confusion, keeps it really simple, and customer facing teams love this because when a customer does contact with them with feedback, they know exactly where to put it and what should happen next. So yeah, transfer all feedback to one single method that you'll use from now on. So if you've got a load of feedback in emails, but you only want to use a survey, add the email feedback to the survey database and then move forward from there. It is okay to have multiple streams of feedback if they're all linked together. So like in Receptive, we have a lot of customer facing teams that work using Zendesk, and any features and feedback they get are just pushed into Receptive. It's all integrated. And with Salesforce as well. So sales team are in there day in, day out. They don't want the workflow interrupted, so they can just link feedback really easily from there. But ultimately, just make sure the feedback's in one place so you can actually use it wisely.
And a final issue you might have with collection is that you're collecting the wrong information. This means your product team don't actually end up with the data they need to make decisions. The easiest way to ensure you're collecting the relevant info is using a survey where you can ask the right questions, or for receptive users by customizing your form. If you're using email or a chat widget like Intercom, then you need to make sure that your colleagues in the customer-facing teams are following up with any relevant questions. So here's a handy list of the information you should be collecting at a minimum. You should be asking who wants it, what is the problem, and what is the workaround. By focusing on problems, your product team can do their job and come up with solutions. It's worth checking with everyone to make sure that you're collecting exactly the information they need. Collecting data is good, but collecting the right data is priceless.
That's a nice little saying,
that's my
Joe.
motto. That's
so
my life motto.
It's your life motto.
Yeah, I'm going to live my life.
That's quite sad, Joe. But no, you make a really good point. Like getting a huge list of feature requests off customers isn't helpful. It's not very empowering because it means you're acting to feature requests and not a list of pain points. So you obviously can't design a good solution if you're just presented with a kind of big list of features to build. So the next part of that, if you're collecting the right data and it's in one place, is obviously you can start to analyze that, because there's no point collecting it if you're not going to use it. There can be a problem here with a lack of prioritization. So this is a big issue we see. So what's a nice to have versus a real pain point? And while that prioritization piece tends to fall under the remit of product managers, it can sometimes be very difficult to get into the mind of your customer. You know, they're the people using your product day in and day out. They know all the little niggles that drive them crazy. And in fact, a lot of products end up stagnating because companies built what they thought customers wanted rather than asking them directly. So we highly recommend opening prioritization up to customers and team members. It saves product teams loads and loads of time, and it does move that data set from being like a list of features or pains to one that's actually prioritized. So you're in a much, much better position from day one. If you don't already collect customer priorities on an ongoing basis, then like I say, highly recommend doing so. And it goes back to the collection point and tweaking how you gather feedback. That's going to be a bit of a pattern, as you can tell. But yeah, you shouldn't really be setting priorities on your own. You should be involving people with that. Get customers and team members involved, and you'll learn a lot more.
So on the flip side of that, you have a lack of segmentation. Simply knowing what your customers want is really valuable, but even better is knowing who wants what. It's crucial that you're able to segment your data in this way. If you can't, then you need to add a way of getting that information, probably at the collection stage. So maybe you need to add an extra question to your survey, or you might even need to manually add that to the data you collect. If you want me to do it for you automatically, then that's when a software solution like Receptive will help handle that for you. Over the years, we've found that different customer demographics can prioritize drastically different features. Your free trialers are bound to have different needs than your highest value customers, and then you have team members thrown into the mix. So your sales team may want completely different things to your support team, And then you see scenes a little like this.
You're so proud of that slide.
You know what? I think I could just retire tomorrow. And
That's it, done.
I feel like I've peaked.
Job done.
Making sure you're able to segment is crucial if you want to make the most of your data.
Yeah, just to add a point to the segmentation bit. You don't have to go back to slide if you don't want.
Watch it again, just because it's quite good.
But we've been like working closely with a lot of SaaS companies, and we're finding more and more that if you've got that nice kind of loop of feedback with your customers and teams, then you can start to see this feedback that you're gathering in one place as like a library. You should see it as a library, not a big backlog of features that you may or may not build. And that just gives you loads of control. It lets you look at the bits of feedback that are interesting to you when you need it, which leads us into lack of strategy. Like you don't have a chance of building anything decent, let alone something that your customers want or your prospects will want to buy, if there's no strategy there. So that needs to be your guiding light, because it points you in the right direction. And then, like I said, you can pick the bits of feedback out that you need and analyze that data accordingly. A surprising number of, we did a survey on this last year, didn't we, Joe?
Yeah.
And a surprising number of companies don't actually use the strategy when it comes to managing feedback. So if your strategy is to close enterprise deals and you're sat there building a load of stuff for like one-man bands or one-lady bands, one-lady band, is that a word? It's a word now.
Yeah, I don't know.
Then obviously that's not going to be very helpful. So a lot of it comes down to the fact that all the data you can collect can be overwhelming, and it can be really hard to know what to do with it. So again, that's where segmentation comes in, and you do that by looking at your strategy. A good strategy outlines your goals. Short and long term is useful. It might be, for example, that next quarter you want to focus on preventing churn. So you should segment your feedback data, focus on what your churned users asked for before they left. And then it's amazing what that little report will tell you. And it can help you save other at-risk accounts, because they might be looking to leave for the same reasons. So without a strategy, you've just basically got a load of feedback and no idea what to do with it. So get that strategy in place, and then you can use that feedback really, really well.
And so finally, the communication stage of the process. Without this part, you can't close the feedback loop. So a common issue a lot of SaaS companies face with communication is shoulder tapping. We all hate shoulder tapping. You're busy working on something that requires total concentration, and then a colleague messages you, emails you, maybe even actually taps you on the, does that actually happen? Do people actually tap you on the shoulder?
I don't know.
That seems quite a rude thing to do.
More like a punch in the face. Oh no, it's not. It's not that violent.
I'm not sure that's the advice we should be giving.
No, we shouldn't give that advice. But maybe, no, I'm sure that just like you wander over to someone's desk, you're like, hey,
right, yeah, but you're not literally like physically touching them, because that seems a bit like
weird.
That's a threshold.
That's weird, yeah. Don't go there, people, don't go there.
Keep your hands to yourself. This is a common problem when product feedback isn't communicated through the organization. So a good example is how it's often left to support teams, those on the front lines, to deal with feedback. They'll hear it from a customer and they'll stick it somewhere. And when the product team look through, they don't understand it. It lacks the context. So then they have to go shoulder tapping and ask support to clarify. And it ends up with this whole back and forth that wastes everyone's time. So to combat shoulder tapping, you need to structure your feedback process in a way that empowers every team member from every department to access it. If your product team can directly access the feedback, there's no need for them to shoulder tap the support team. Connecting various tools together is a great way of solving this. Receptive, for example, will integrate with tools like Zendesk and Jira. Feedback can come into Zendesk, be sent over to Receptive for the product team to look at, and then sent out to Jira for the dev team, and all with a few clicks.
The second big thing we see is confused customers. If you want customers to keep on giving you feedback, which is incredibly valuable for you, then you need to treat them respectfully. A lot of companies take feedback and then just give nothing back. It's like silence, or they say things like, we'll give it to the product team, and again, silence. So there's no thank you, there's no status update, there is literally nothing. And then companies wonder why customers stop bothering. It does take a bit of time to communicate, but it really is worth it in the long run. It develops your relationship with that customer. It builds a lot of trust. And if you've got a good feedback experience, it becomes part of just customer experience in general. It's really, really good for your users. And there's loads of ways to automate this. You could use things like Zapier to create workflows. Here at Receptive, when we change the status of a piece of feedback, any customers that were interested in that are automatically notified as well. So there's loads of neat little ways you can make that better. Oh, it's your other favourite slide.
I tell you what, I've been looking forward to this the whole time. You don't understand how long this took.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
And everyone watching is just gonna be like, yeah, good, yeah, well done.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So yeah, the take home is just keep customers in the loop. Like, don't underestimate how powerful that is. Otherwise, they'll stop caring, and it's actually really simple to do. So when a customer reaches out with feedback, oh, look at that.
Can I just clarify that it's a black hole of feedback in case that's not clear?
Oh, sorry, that's the black hole of feedback. But just send your customers a quick message, let them know how you're going to deal with that. And something else actually that's helped loads with this is a product feedback policy. We're seeing a lot of SaaS companies put that in place. It's very similar to a support SLA or an employee handbook or a contract. It's just a really short document, and it outlines your approach to feedback, how you manage it, and then how you communicate back. And all that does is set expectations really nicely. You're not going to build everything customers ask for. That's ridiculous. But you are going to listen, and you are going to get some real good data from them. So yeah, be respectful and get a feedback policy. And
there is also more information about how to write a product feedback policy now on our new website, which is productfeedbackpolicy.com.
Oh, is that live, is it?
That is live.
Oh!
It's a good job we keep in touch with each other, isn't it?
It's a good job we've closed that feedback
we
loop,
avoid
Joe.
shoulder tapping by just ignoring each other. That's what we do. So that's news to hand just as much as it is to you guys. So that's
I've been very busy, Joe.
So let's finish with a quick recap. So we've learned that burying your head in the sand is not the best way to deal with a feedback crisis. You should audit your current process and focus on the 3 key areas, which are collection, analysis, and communication. And then once you've identified where the problems lie, you can put a proper solution in place. That's about it. Remember, don't be an ostrich.
Or do be an ostrich, because they don't actually
bury
their heads in the sand.
So maybe I've done ostriches an injustice here. Maybe,
I think you have.
Maybe you could be an ostrich if you wanted to be.
Definitely. Oh, can I give a quick SaaS stock shout out?
You can, yeah.
So if you've enjoyed this content, or if you want to come and meet any of us, we're going to be over in Dublin at SaaS stock.
I'm not. So you can't meet me there.
Oh no, there's me, Dan, Hayley and Ali going. Sorry, Joe, you can come next time.
I'm just busy making PowerPoints, that's all.
Yeah, I dread to think how long that slide took. But there's a lot of the team over there, and I'm also doing a talk on customer feedback, which is on the first day at 11:20 on the traction stage. So very much looking forward to that. So come and say hello.
It touches on a lot of these themes that we've covered as well, doesn't it?
It does, yeah, it does actually. So yeah, like any questions, send them over to joe@receptive.io, and we'll make sure this webinar is published as well. Hope it's been useful.
Yeah, we'll send out a load of resources probably tomorrow, because it's the evening here and I'm ready for bed. So
really? Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for watching.